Alright guys, welcome back to another Roblox game development tutorial, and today I'm going to show you some advanced object creation. Now I am not talking about object-oriented programming, we'll cover that much later. Right now I am talking about creating cool and unique parts, models, and other objects inside of Roblox Studio. So very first thing I want to show you all is the idea that when you click here, you actually have access to all the models that exist in Roblox Studio. That's underneath models, and then insert objects. You have all the different things that exist in here, and there's just a lot here. I'm not going to go through all the things here and everything that they do. I recommend you guys check this out on your own time and mess around with it, but there's a lot of unique stuff here that comes in handy all the time. So going ahead and just looking through here, let's go ahead and look at how you could create, for example, a torch. Now this is going to be a static asset, static meaning that it doesn't change. Change would be the word dynamic. So this is just going to be a static torch. You can't hold this torch. It's not going to be a tool. But I just want to show you how you can kind of use some of the concepts that we looked at so far to make something that looks kind of cool. So here's a part here. I'm going to go ahead and change this into wood, and I'm going to change this material type here to wood planks. You could also use a different type of wood if you wanted. I'm also going to go ahead and come down here and change this to a cylinder, since I want this to be like a rod, and rotate it up. As you can see, I have a nice little cylinder here. Then I can take this part here. I'm going to name this, if I was making a tool, I would name it handle, but I think handle is a good name for it regardless, so I'll name it handle. Then I'm going to come here and I'm just going to duplicate this part and move it up. Here's my duplicate. I'll make the color red so that way I can distinguish between the two for right now. I'm going to come here and scroll this down, and yeah, that should be right there, would be good. This is going to be my fire part, so I'm going to rename this fire. Okay, then underneath fire, I can go ahead and add an object. I'm going to add, there's a couple objects here that you can add which are really good. There is a fire object. This is a specific type of particle emitter. And there are the particle emitters, which I recommend you guys really learn about, because this is a very, very, very nice object that you can use. And as you can see, it emits particles. You can change the texture ID here of it if you want, change the color and stuff, but particle emitter is great. But since I'm making a torch, I'm going to go ahead and add fire here. I'm going to go ahead and click fire, and as you can see, some fire has been added to my game. Right over here in my Explorer window, here's fire. Now I'm going to go ahead and just drag this fire underneath my fire part, and I'm going to make my fire part fully transparent so nobody can see it. And I'm also going to just anchor these two objects here. And as you can see, you have a torch, but if I didn't anchor this here, this would fall apart. So the question is, how do you then bring these two things together? And you would use what's known as a constraint. Now, yes, you could union them, but that defeats the point of this, as this is a part that serves to essentially hold the fire object. Another way you could do this as well, instead of creating two parts here, is you could also create an attachment. An attachment is a great thing because an attachment, as the name implies, allows you to attach things to the object. So here's your attachment, and we should be able to make this visible right there. So let's move it. There it is. So as you can see, I'm moving this attachment up. There's the attachment, and then underneath this, I could click the plus button here and get fire. And I could do a fire torch the same way. Generally speaking, this is the better way to do it, because that way you can really specify where you want the fire to be. But you could also do it the part way as well. Now you can add some smoke, because fire would generally emit smoke. Maybe not that much smoke. Let's see here. You could change the color probably to black. We'd want like a black smoke. There we go. And then size down to probably like 0.1, so it's not so big. But as you can see, this creates a cool little looking torch. Some black smoke. Probably change the smoke up a little bit more. It still looks like it's emitting like a ridiculous amount. And we'll go ahead and change this to like 0.1, and then time scale will be 0.1. So time scale is how fast, like it. So as you can see, the rise velocity is very small here. Actually, we're talking about the rise velocity would be 1, and then the time that it exists should be like 0.3-ish. There we go. As you can see, we get a nice little rise there. And then you can also change the color of the fire. So if you wanted like a purplish fire, you could do it that way. And then you can also rotate this attachment. So if you don't like the way the fire is pointing, you can just rotate the attachments. And as you can see, that changes the way the fire points. So boom. And there you go. We have a nice little torch here. And as you can see, it emits black smoke. We'll probably change this to like 0.2 now. So that's going to be the amount of time it lasts, and then it kind of disappears. And yeah, so this is a good example of a 3D object, or just an object in the game that has multiple different elements and parts under it that allows it to do specific things. Now, let's say I wanted to take this torch here and add more onto it, like weld it to a wall, for example, because torches probably wouldn't just be hanging out like that. So let's go ahead and create a part here. And what I can do is I can come out here, I can scroll out, we'll name this wall. I'm going to go ahead and anchor the wall, and I'm going to unanchor the torch. I'm going to rename this not a torch, just like so. And I'm going to unanchor it. So unanchor is going to be right here. Now, there's a really cool property here, or a really cool game object known as welding. A weld allows you to take two parts and essentially bind them together. So how do you weld? It's not too bad. All you're going to do is you're going to come create restraint here, and there's a whole bunch of constraints, and we'll talk about some of these cool ones in a second, but weld's going to be the one we're going to do. And you simply just click on this part here, and you click the weld part here, and it creates a weld. So there's two things here. I had to click it in this order. The way this essentially works is wherever this goes, this is going to follow, because I clicked on this first. And you can tell by the way this is parented. So you'll have your weld constraint here. The way this works is part 0 is, think of this like the parent. Wherever part 0 goes, part 1 follows, right? So as long as these two are like this will be active, and I'll show you guys in a second. So as you can see here, and if you move this, it breaks the weld, and I'll show that in a second. So the moment you move this, it kind of messes up our weld constraint. Actually, it didn't this time, but sometimes that will mess up the weld constraint, so just be aware of that. So now I'll go ahead and click play here. And as you can see, I unanchored my torch, but as you can see, it's still there. And if I start moving this around, that broke the weld constraint. So if you move it in real time, it'll break the weld constraint. But it will actually follow, and it will actually stay where you asked it to stay, right? And this is unanchored, but yet it stayed. Actually, the wall is, this is unanchored, as you can see here, right? So that's a really, really cool thing you can add here. There's a whole bunch of other constraints. I'm going to show you guys another really cool one, which is used a ton, known as the spring constraint, which is it's one of the cooler ones. Allows you to create some more unique objects / models in Roblox Studio. But the string constraint essentially creates a spring that you can then, hang objects on. Let's go ahead and move this over here, move this over, and then down. And all you have to do again to create a spring constraint is very similar to the weld constraint. You're just going to click this, you're going to click spring, and you're going to click the two things. So this is your first attachment. So this is where you want the spring to attach. So I probably want the spring to attach like right here, and then I want it to connect like there. And as you can see, that creates your spring object. And again, you can kind of mess around with the spring object as much as you want and change its features. It's all right here. You can also make it not visible. If you don't want it to be visible, you can do that. Dampening. So these are like the spring constraints that control how strong the spring is, how much force is added, all that kind of stuff is configured here. So let's go ahead and give this torch just some initial velocity here. Make it like spin. So we'll go ahead and just give it like 100 and then make it, I don't know, spin on the same axis. So it should spin out of control and act all weird, which is kind of cool to watch. And as you see, the spring constraint will hold it in place. So I click play here. And it's going crazy, which is what we expected, but as you can see, the spring constraint holds this in place. And this is, again, a really good example of how you can create kind of like your own unique 3D modeling objects using all the inbuilt game objects that Roblox Studio provides. It's pretty nice and pretty awesome. So yeah, that's it for that. Last thing I want to show you all is the ability to bring in models from other places. All you would do, so let's say you made a model in Blender and you wanted to import it, or you got one off of Sketchfab, you would just click Import 3D Model here and just find the model you want to import and import it here. and make sure it's an FBX or an OBJ file or it will not work. And that's pretty much that. One other thing, you can also create GUI using Billboard GUI. So a billboard creates, as it names, like a billboard, and you can adorn it to a part. So I adorned it like doing this here, and essentially now this billboard is on this part. You don't see any text because I haven't had any text. Go ahead and offset the studs here by like 20, maybe not 20. How about like I'll do 20 for now, and then I can create like a text label here, and as you can see, it creates that just like so, and that allows you to create some GUI for your game. And then you can also use Surface GUI. So Surface GUI is going to apply a graphical user interface to the surface, hence the name Surface GUI. Pretty clever name, I know. You can adorn it. Again, you have to adorn it to a part. The wall here, adorn it to the wall, and then start adding some stuff to it. So I have like a text box, and as you can see, pops up right here, right? And of course, you can add even other things to this, like a button that the player can click on. As you can see, I can click on this in game, right? Pretty cool stuff here, and you can again move this button down. There's some good plugins for moving Surface GUI around, but I think you guys get the point. But yeah, this was just an overview of all the cool, like small little things that you can do here with all these objects. They are very unique and pretty cool, all the stuff you can do here. So you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave it down in the comments below, and I will see you all in the next one.